Okay everybody, I am going to teach you how to use Visual Studio to build an installer in Windows in less than 5 minutes. So what I've done tonight is I created a new project in Visual Studio. I'm calling it the Toni Garrn App, and it's fairly simple. It's not much more than a Hello World app. I have developed a simple main function here, which just all it does is it tells you the name of the app, it asks you for our first and last name, and then outputs that name. It counts to 10,000, which essentially creates a delay so that we can see that it worked, and it outputs the name to this screen. If you've never used C++ before, there are two sort of internal embeds that you need to include, and those are IOStream, which allows us to input and output strings, and we need string itself so that you can define a string rather than a set of characters. And you'll find that string is a lot faster than dealing with arrays of characters, which essentially make up the function in the first place. So I've got a very basic program here. You can add all of this in about 10 seconds, and once you do, it doesn't have any headers or anything external. These are just standard compiler include statements. So when you install Visual Studio 2019, both of these will be included. Now, if you've ever taken a class in C++, you will see these as fairly standard, and the only thing different about this program is that Visual Studio for Windows, unlike Unix and Linux compilers, doesn't have the default namespace defined. So you'll see that namespace is essentially an area in memory that the program uses. And you'll notice that when you use cout on a Windows compiler, you do have to define the namespace because there are several options there. So I'm not going to get into that tonight, but if you've been programming on your Linux or Unix system at your college or university, usually you would not include the namespace to the output. But you certainly can. So if you use this format, it's pretty much cross-platform. Now what I'm doing here, by default, Windows creates, Visual Studio creates the directory structure underneath the users. And so if you go to users, you'll see under the, in this case I'm using the administrator, but you'll see a source directory, and Visual Studio puts your projects there where you can get it. So as I'm creating this template, Visual Studio is creating that directory structure for you. So all I'm going to do here real quick, I'm just going to build this program. You'll see it starting down here at the bottom. It's going to take about 15 seconds to build this little 25-line program, which is a little better than Hello World. So if you're trying to build a Hello World, that's pretty interesting, but it doesn't do any input. So this will give you some little bit of guidance on how to control, control feeds and the like, so that you can get some breaks in there. Now, while that's working, since I happen to know that that program is functional, I'm also going to build an installer. Now, to build an installer, we essentially have two parts of our application. The first is a solution file. The solution file has all the sub-projects in it. So in this case, I have the exe for the application itself, and then I have an installer down here that will make that application useful in Windows. So this application installer, when you create a setup program inside of Visual Studio, it creates the basics of the application folder, the user desktop, and the programs menu. And if you right mouse click on any of these, you essentially just need to update the parameters in the properties window. So you'll figure this out fairly quickly. The only thing I would add is if you right mouse click on the application folder, you can add files and folders to your install. So these files that you see here are listed. I have 3 pictures of Toni and an icon, along with the output from the exe. That is the key. If you go to add project output, it puts the exe that you're building up here into the application itself. So you don't have to name it specifically like in some other installers. So this is pretty cool. Once this is done, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to build that app. And I have this, I have an error here. It's telling me that I'm building to the wrong folder. So I have to fix real quick here a shortcut. And I'm going to put the shortcut into the programs folder. Both of these. And I'm going to do the same thing on the desktop. I'm not going to go into this in great detail because you'll find within probably a few minutes of work you'll get that worked out fairly simply. So I am not going to bother with that, but I am going to build it. So the build succeeded. You'll see that one item created, and all it's doing is it's dumping the installer to where I told it. So you'll see there's a Toni installer here. And if you go into the programs feed, I think I already have used this before, so I'm going to uninstall it real quick. And I'm the publisher, Greenville Associates. So I'm going to uninstall Toni's program here. And then I'm going to reinstall. And so this will take just a few seconds. I have a directory that I built for the installer. I'm going to click on it. You'll notice that the default here is the 32-bit directory. I've given it my name of my company and a directory there. I've set it up for everyone so that when I install this it will be available to every user. And Toni's app is now being installed. Now Toni's app does a couple things. First, it creates an icon on the desktop. Second, you'll see that it did in fact create the Greenville Associates folder and then the Toni's app folder beneath it. And you'll see that my application here, Toni Video Wall, is there along with all of her pictures. And I have an HTML that I built. And that just shows those pictures that are sitting there. So this is a fairly straightforward app. It does work. So I have Toni.html and it just displays the 3 pictures that I put there. Alright, so that's pretty much it. You can see the executable. It's calling for Toni Garrn App. Last name is Stritzinger. First name is John. And that worked. Alright, so that's about it. I think that might have taken 3 minutes. You'll notice now that if I go into the programs wall, you'll notice if I try to go to check on it, I'm Greenville Associates, and you'll see the app show up right there. So there it is, Toni's app. You can see the icon I attached to it. It's showing it as a product release of version 1, and it's all ready to go. So very successful. And I can deploy this whole app either as an executable you can download or you could even use it as a Git directory as well. So we'll get into that another day. But that is it. Peace out.